Hello and welcome back to Getaway Day. As always, I am Mason, he is Gautham, and we are here to talk about quilting.
Quilting, yes.
Yeah, what's your favorite stitch?
Cross stitch.
Cross stitch? I'm a big fan of parallel stitches.
Okay, very nice, very nice.
I assume that's the opposite of a cross stitch. I'm not really sure. I've been outside the National Quilting Museum, but I've not actually been inside it, so I'm a little lost.
You missed out.
I mean, hey, I've been closer than most people have. Most people have never been to Paducah, Kentucky. So
lucky guy.
I know, right? All right, so obviously this is not a quilting podcast, or that would have been a much more enjoyable conversation right there. But I do think we're going to take a few different pieces of conversation and put them together and make a beautiful podcast episode out of it. So in a way, we are quilting. We're just quilting with words. Ooh, you know what? We should create an app where you quilt with words with your friends. We'll make it kind of like Scrabble. We'll call it Words with Friends.
What?
I know.
It's such a good idea.
It's a great idea. All right. Well, back to serious business, though. We have now finished, I believe, 4 division previews that are able to be posted with audio. Does that sound correct?
I think 3, right?
Now
it'll be 6 by the end of next week.
I was going to say, now I actually don't know how many we've done. We've done at least the American League Central, the American League West, and the National League Central.
Yep.
Yeah, there's 2 that we haven't done at all, and then 1 we have to re-record. So yes, you're right. Sure. We have 3. So go make sure to check out those first 3. Today we are talking about the National League West. This is probably the most interesting division, in my opinion, in the major leagues. I think there are 4 teams here that, I mean, we've talked about the American League Central and the National League Central, and about how it seemed like, and the American League West, and how it seemed like there were 4 teams that could potentially take it, and then 1 that was definitely out of it. It kind of feels the same for this division, but to a much more extreme.
Yeah. The teams are way better on the top, and you've got some of the top teams in the league in this division, and even probably the 3rd and 4th teams are not going to be bad at all. They're going to be right there in the wild card hunt at least.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit, I guess, does that speak to the parity of MLB at all, that basically all these divisions have, most of them have a heavy favorite to win it? Like the Dodgers would probably be the heavy favorite here in the National League West. I don't see a world in which they wouldn't be, at least right now. But like we've now talked about half the divisions in the league that have maybe 4 teams that could potentially get into the wild card. So it kind of feels like there's a lot of parity in MLB right now. And
yeah, I agree. I think that's a different conversation than this one. But yes,
I think it's actually exactly the conversation for this one, because one team in this division, everyone seems to think, has just bought themselves the next 15 World Series. And people keep seeing all these signings with, I think we all know I'm talking about the Dodgers here. The Dodgers bringing in Ohtani last year, Yamamoto last year, bringing in Teoscar Hernandez, and having Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, all these guys building a juggernaut team that did just win a World Series. Yes, they did. But people are looking at this club that keeps going out and adding now Roki Sasaki, and they got Tommy Edman in a trade last year, and he's going to help solidify the middle infield. And they just see this team and they think it's unfair to the rest of the league. No one else has a chance. But this division has 4 teams that could realistically win this division. Is it likely that a team other than the Dodgers will? Maybe, maybe not. That's something that we'll get to in this episode here. But I wanted to start out this episode by bringing up the parity piece because I think it's incredibly important to remember this year with this Dodgers team that every other team still has a shot to win this thing. The Dodgers have an insane star-studded lineup, but so did the 98 Braves. What happened to them?
Yeah, it doesn't always pan out. And the team that I keep thinking about is the Braves from 2 years ago. They were amazing offense, so good, won so many games. And then pretty much nothing went right for them, and they lost. I mean, they lost guys to injury. Guys didn't perform as expected, and there's such a wide range of outcomes in what can really happen in a baseball season from year to year. It's forgotten, and people want to crown the Dodgers, but we cannot do that, especially in this division because they're going to be playing competitive games all year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think maybe the best way to get to this point of parity in this division is maybe talk about why teams can win the division and what could cause teams to lose the division. And I'm talking all the teams, even, can't believe I'm saying this, the Colorado Rockies. We're gonna say something nice. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna force myself to do it. So I kind of let's just start with the team that everyone has just already crowned the division winner. Let's start with the Dodgers. Give me one reason that the Dodgers are going to win this division and one reason why they are going to lose this division in a spectacular fashion.
Okay, well, you asked for one reason, so I could say that they're the best organization in baseball, but I'm going to say that they have the best top end talent of any team in baseball, and it's not super close. So you kind of already talked about their guys. We know Freddie, we know Mookie, we know Shohei. Those are your main men in the lineup, but their supporting cast is really good with guys like Hernandez, and then the free agent additions just from this offseason alone. They brought in Blake Snell, who, when he's on, is one of the finest pitchers in the league. Even if he's not going to throw 200 innings in a season, the innings that he does throw are going to be very high quality. And then Roki Sasaki, one of the best rising talents, I'll say. He's probably not a finished product in 2025, but there's no question that he is one of the most talented, high ceiling pitchers in the world anywhere. And the Dodgers got that guy. So each little piece that they add to their team, they're in such a unique roster situation that they've squeezed guys that would be surefire locks for other teams' rosters off their roster. And I'm thinking of mostly like relievers and such, but thinking about like Ryan Brazier. He's a guy that had a great season. He's been part of 2 World Series teams with the Red Sox and the Dodgers last year. Would be a surefire bullpen guy, maybe not like a closer or anything, but he'd be in almost every team's bullpen. He doesn't fit on the Dodgers. They literally just had to DFA him, even though there was no performance reason really for him having done anything wrong to receive that treatment. But
I was going to say, he got that because of Roki, didn't he? Wasn't he the corresponding move to add Roki to the 40-man?
I think so, yeah. Or either him or Tanner Scott or Kirby Yates. They added so many guys this offseason because, I didn't even mention Scott and Yates. Those guys were top tier closers last year. And they're striving for perfection with this roster, just the way it's built. It's top to bottom, man 1 through 26 and even beyond to guy 40. They've got depth, and But I guess my answer to the question is they've got the talent to do it. I would say it's unmatched. I think that's not super controversial.
Yeah, and my reason for them winning this division is along those similar lines. Like I've already looked at the top end guys. It's you can't argue against those guys in any way, shape, or form. So what am I doing? I'm looking at the down the lineup guys. I'm looking at the down the rotation guys. Guys like Michael Conforto, Tommy Edman, Haesung Kim, who they just signed from the KBO. Guys at the bottom of the rotation like Tony Gonsolin, who is, I think, back from an injury last year.
Yep. He missed the season.
So, and I'm looking at those guys, and a lot of these guys are new to the roster after about July last year. Every single one of those guys I mentioned, with the exception of Gonsolin, who was on the IL, but I guess technically that means he's new to the roster since then. But I'm looking at those guys, and those guys are very, very quality starters everywhere else. Haesung Kim, we don't really know yet because he's not played in the majors, but over in the KBO, he was very, very good. And so when your worst guys in the lineup are very good, kind of top middle of the order players on other teams, that's a really good sign. And they've pinched some of the guys of old from these Dodgers teams off the roster. Some guys like Gavin Lux got traded away to the Reds. Then you have some of these other guys who have been they were huge with the Dodgers. They went elsewhere, came back. Guys like Kike Hernandez. Chris Taylor's been there forever, but like these are guys that are now losing their jobs essentially as starters or utility guys to some of these younger, higher floor players now. And it's really weird to see because there's always been those couple Dodgers players that you think they're very what's the word? Not honorable. Not reliable. The Dodgers really like, basically, it seems like they would never kick him out. They're just waiting for him to leave. But they're now getting pinched off the roster for better players, and it's making it as bulletproof as they can. So that's kind of why I think the Dodgers are going to win it, is because even their worst players are not detrimental.
Okay. Are you ready to make the case for why the Dodgers are not going to win the division?
Yes.
Okay. This one's easy for me, I think, actually.
I think we're probably thinking the same thing. Can you sum it to one word on the count of three?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Injury.
Old.
Interesting.
I went with old. You went with injury.
They're kind of related. So
they're definitely related, but I mean, this team is old. Like they've got to be the oldest team in the league. Almost every single player on the roster is above 30, with the exception of Will Smith, who's like turning 30, and Haesung Kim. Tommy Edman's turning 30.
Yeah.
And they've got a bench full of guys that are right around 35 years old. And you were kind of making the point that the worst players on the roster are still like good players, but Chris Taylor has not been good in 3 years. I don't know how he's stuck on this roster. Miguel Rojas is not getting any better. I mean, he's a 36-year-old light hitting shortstop. And I don't know what the Dodgers see in Austin Barnes other than like he's the caddy for Clayton Kershaw, but they really do not have a good bench. And I guess going into your reasoning on injury, if their guys get injured, then, you know, these bench guys could be thrust into more full-time roles, and that could really hurt the team. And just on the age front, who knows when guy like Teoscar Hernandez could just absolutely fall off a cliff. That's kind of like the risk with him, because he's always a guy that has kind of struck out quite a bit, and he's relied on just hitting the hell out of the ball to reach good production. And when he is not making quite as much contact, then you could really see his numbers drop off in a big way. And there's that kind of risk with every older player, and it gets increasingly risky as that aging happens. That's like the downside of the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it from the standpoint of injury, which with age tends to come a little bit more on the injury front, maybe a little bit less time on the field just because you're trying to keep guys healthy. But Mookie Betts has been hurt a little bit here and there recently. Missed some time, actually came in and switched to second base a couple years ago to keep him off his feet. And try and get him back in the lineup from injury. And so there's been he's got a little bit of an injury history there. Shohei obviously has had some shoulder issues, or elbow issues, Tommy John, and then internal brace surgery last year that kept him as a DH only. Muncy has kind of been hurt here and there, and so you run into the situation where if any of these guys get hurt, how do you replace them? And to your point, yeah, their bench is old and not good. There are a few very specific situations where I think they could be okay for a bit, and that's mostly if Tommy Edman moves to the infield because he's expected to play center, and then they have James Outman and Andy Pages in the minors. But outside of that, the Dodgers don't have any prospects up at the higher levels because they've just been shut out of the 40-man and traded away to make room and clear space for some of these other guys. And so we've seen some really good young players like Michael Busch get traded to the Cubs here before last year, and players like that who would be able to help in those situations. But now it seems like they're down to a whole bunch of cast-offs that they have in their system. Guys like Michael Chavis, David Bodie, Justin Dean. I thought that said Austin Dean. I'm like, no way he's still there. But yeah, there's just the depth is not there at close to the major league level. The Dodgers still have a lot of really good prospects, but they're all 2027, 2028, 2029 expected ETA in the majors. So my biggest concern is injury to the rotation, injury to the lineup, thrusting some of these subpar players into premier spots for a significant portion of the season. Did I make an argument that you're like, okay, there's a world in which I could see that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree on the prospect thing, but I get the point, and I agree on the injury and the age that go hand in hand, and that could be the downfall of this team.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move to another team. Let's go Arizona. 2 years off of a World Series appearance against the Rangers. A team that's made quite a few moves this offseason trying to help improve their club. Yeah, they lost Christian Walker. They lost Josh Bell. But they also brought in Corbin Burns, right?
Corbin Burns and Josh Naylor.
So, and apparently Christian Pache on a minor league deal. That's huge. That's huge. They also brought in Kendall Graveman to their bullpen, and they've made a couple other moves here. But this is a team that is very much trying to compete. They have a lot of good young players of their own that we've seen the last couple of years, and Corbin Carroll and why am I forgetting his name? Gabby Moreno, Jake McCarthy. And they are going all in, it seems, with the money that they have to try and compete in this division. So, in your opinion, why do the Arizona Diamondbacks win the National League West?
So to set this up, let's remember the Diamondbacks scored more runs than the Dodgers last year. They led the league in runs scored. So they've already got a very, very good offense. And they basically made a lateral move. I mean, it's roughly an equivalent move by bringing in Josh Naylor to replace Christian Walker. You could make some argument for either guy being better, but I think in general, it's like kind of a wash offensively. Um, and they're returning the whole rest of the crew on offense. And Corbin Carroll didn't even really have a Corbin Carroll like season really until the end of the year. He really struggled through the first 3-4 months of the year, and he kind of turned it on late. And still, the lineup was totally fine with him not playing up to his full potential. So I think the offense is going to be good, really good. But the point I'm trying to make here is that they went out and they attacked their biggest need, which is starting pitching, and they got Corbin Burns, which is not a small move. That's huge to get a pitcher who has been reliably like a top 10 pitcher in the league for several years, like 3-4 years now. That's, you can't find that anywhere. You cannot find that in a trade. You can only find that in free agency every handful of years. You don't get a free agent like this. And he's going to be the ace that they need. I mean, you can make the case for Zach Gallen being an ace, but he's like a half step down from that. He's like a great number 2. He's a number 1 on some teams, but now he's your number 2. And then you're hoping for better things from Merrill Kelly, who's been good in the past, Eduardo Rodriguez, and then Brandon Pfaadt, who was showing signs of breaking out last year. And it was pretty good to see him throw like almost 190 innings, I think, last year. So he seems like primed to take the next step and become a really good, solid pitcher. So they've got the depth there now, and also the top end talent in Burns and Gallen. So when you add that to their already elite offense, this team's going to be great. They're going to be so good. They're going to be competitive, and they can definitely hang with the Dodgers and take them out. That's what I'm saying here as I make the case for the D-backs.
So I think my reason that they're going to win is youth. They have a lot of young players that have incredibly high upside. Guys that I've already mentioned, like Corbin Carroll, Gabby Moreno, Alec Thomas, Jake McCarthy, Blaze Alexander, all these guys who were very good prospects, some of them elite prospects, and Corbin Carroll and Blaze Alexander was high up for a while as well. Plus you have Geraldo Perdomo, who just got was it a 5-year extension or a 3-year?
I think 4-year extension.
But yeah, so Geraldo Perdomo, 25 years old, just signed a 4-year extension. Gabby Moreno, who's around for another 4 years. All these guys that have shown flashes of being really good to great. Then you have Jordan Lawler. You have who can come in, and if Gino Suarez isn't doing it, Lawler can play third. Now you have Ketel Marte, Jordan Lawler, and Geraldo Perdomo as your infield. And you feel pretty darn good with that if Lawler starts to kind of come into his own here at the major league level. You've got guys like Greg Kessinger, who is also a fairly decent young player. Some pitchers in Yilber Diaz, who will probably be up in the rotation a bit this year. Blake Walston and some of these other like high draft pick organizational prospect guys. So I think that they're going to see a lot of contributions out of these young players, namely the ones that are already on the roster, but anything they get out of guys still in the minors, is icing on the cake. Pair it with that rotation that is now led by Corbin Burns, and I think they could make a pretty good run this year. Now, I will say, my reason they're going to lose is youth. So a high ceiling comes with the caveat that we've not necessarily seen it before. Or if we have, we've seen it in short bursts, and it's not necessarily the average. So a player can have as high a ceiling as, well, infinite height, really. We've seen some of these young studs. Jackson Chourio came onto the scene and really seemed to not have any problems as a 20-year-old last year. Granted, with the Brewers, but point carries over. But that's not all that common for a young player to come onto the scene and dominate right away. So those same guys that I just said could potentially take a step forward and be awesome and lead this team to winning the NL West could very well flame out and be the exact reason why this team does not score as many runs as it did last year, is not able to keep up in the division. Maybe Brandon Pfaadt takes a step back and there's now kind of a hole there at the fifth rotation spot. And once every 5 days, you're kind of expecting to lose. Like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but I would probably bet on the more positive side there for this club.
Yeah, no, I'll add on to that one because a guy like Jordan Lawler, he was a top prospect, and he actually made his debut in 2023 at the end of the season. And now we're here in 2025, and he's not even really in the picture for this ball club this year. Signing Perdomo to the extension, Suarez is kind of entrenched right now. Like he's sort of the prospect stock has dropped a lot, and this feels like his last chance in some ways. I know he's still young, but he's got to do something. He hasn't done anything now in 2 years mostly because of injuries, and just hasn't been able to play a lot. I think my reason is also the exact inverse of the reason I gave for why I thought they'd win the division. It's because, well, I guess it's not the same reason, but the reason would be that their offense cannot repeat what they did last year because guys were going and having career seasons. Like Ketel Marte, he's not going to do what he did again last year, most likely. Josh Naylor had a career year with Cleveland last year, and maybe that's the best we'll ever see of Naylor. And he's going to go hit in a more difficult ballpark for left-handed hitters. And other guys that surprise contributed, like Jake McCarthy, who became sort of a full-time player by the end of the year. Maybe he's more the guy he was in 23 or 22 when he was a well below average hitter. And then Eugenio Suarez, who keeps fending off DFA year after year somehow. He'll have these ridiculously hot stretches where, he was basically left for dead in the first half of last year. And then he went on the most ridiculous 3-month stretch of his career. That doesn't necessarily scream to me that that's sustainable, that he can do that again, or he's really the player that he was in the last bit of the season. He seems more like the guy he's been for years and years before, where he's really struggled to hit for average and make enough contact.
Gino, to me, really feels like he would have fit in well in that 2021 Giants club.
Where everybody had a old guy season that was like the best year of their career.
Yep.
Yeah. So I see a lot of risk in guys that could take steps back in the lineup, and if they don't score enough runs, then it's not going to work out.
Yeah. Especially because you're going to have to outslug the Dodgers in quite a few games. All right, so I think it's maybe time that we go to the redheaded stepchild of the National League West and try and knock that one out so we don't end with a bad team again like we did last time.
I like your planning, sir.
Okay. So reasons that the Colorado Rockies are going to win. Sorry. Are going to win the division.
Okay, you want me to take this one first?
Yeah.
While you think. Okay, so the Rockies have done this one thing very well. They have built a really fantastic defense. And that's a necessity in the ballpark that they play in. It's so big, the outfield's huge. They have to play good defense to be a run prevention team. It's necessary, and they've got a Gold Glove type player in Brenton Doyle in center field. Just look up the middle. That's where you need talent on defense, and they've got it. They've got Ryan McMahon, playing second and third. They've got Ezekiel Tovar, really good shortstop defender. And then Jacob Stallings, who can't really hit, but the man knows what he's doing behind the plate, and they have named him the starting catcher. So they're leaning into it, and the way the Rockies win the division is by out defensing everybody and having the greatest defense in baseball history this year. That's the only way it happens.
I'm with you, and I'm going to add the up the middle is going to get arguably better because Tyro Estrada is expected to start as second base. However, the Rockies have Adel Amador on the doorstep, 21-year-old second base prospect. Put him up there with Ezekiel Tovar, and you've got a pretty good double play combo, I think, with Brenton Doyle backing it up if anything gets through. And then McMahon plays third. You've got Michael Tolia and Nolan Jones and Chris Bryant all potentially playing first or left or DHing, I would assume, assuming Chris Bryant's ever actually on the field.
Oh boy,
so
this is hard.
That might be the nicest thing I could say about the Rockies. Hold on, I might be able to get another one. German Marquez is not a completely awful starting pitcher either.
He's back this year, yeah.
So I doubt he's going to be incredibly good, but all you need is someone to keep the ball down. Because the ball carries in that ballpark. Simple. Yeah. But
that's the thing. The ballpark effect is less extreme actually now than it ever has been before, because with humidors in every ballpark, everything's sort of normalized. And I don't think Colorado's that bad. I think it's more the team. It's not, they're less hindered by the ballpark conditions than in the past.
Yes, but it's still an absolutely massive outfield.
It is. And that's why the defense matters. That's why hit suppression is something you want to prioritize. So from that perspective, I think the Rockies are doing the right thing, and you can see it with the types of players that they are rolling out there on defense. The offense is another part, but I'm supposed to be making a positive case here for the Rockies.
Yeah. So no, I'm with you there. I think they have a chance to do something really, really impressive on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's really fun to see Ryan McMahon. He's been a great defender for years and years now. Pretty underrated because Colorado, and he just doesn't really get the spotlight. And Brenton Doyle is an extremely fun player. He's from some Division II college, and you got to give the Rockies props for finding this guy and drafting him and developing him. And he's now a kind of exciting player on their team that had a breakout last year, and the defense is awesome.
He's from Shepherd University.
Yeah.
In Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Never heard of it. But yeah, no, I do think that there could be some fun games for the Rockies this year. I do think Brenton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar, and Ryan McMahon are also fairly good hitters. Fairly. Relative to this team, I think is maybe but
they're fine players. They can be starting players on on other teams, I'm sure. But it's beyond that you
Yeah,
things get
because
dicey.
so maybe here's where we transition to the why they're probably definitely going to lose the division. And they don't have much. So I'm actually looking at the 2025 projections for this Rockies starting lineup. How many players are projected above a 90 WRC plus? Out of the starting 9.
I don't know, like 2 or 3.
4. Above a 90. How many above 100?
2.
1.
1? Who is it?
Nolan Jones.
Nolan Jones is
who is expected to be a platoon player.
Yeah, I was going to say Nolan Jones had a terrible season. Not that I'm giving up on him, but if he's the best projected player, that's all you need to say really about this team. It's just not going to get enough offense to compete.
After Nolan Jones, the next highest projected WRC plus is, making sure that I didn't miss one, Ryan McMahon with a 93. So projections do not love this Rockies club's offense. And to be honest, neither do I on paper. Like, I'm looking at this and Toglia is not that great. Nolan Jones had a horrific season last year after being great 2 years ago. Thairo Estrada, I mean, he's a replacement player, is really all he is. Jordan Beck, I know nothing about, but that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence because he wasn't exactly a high-level prospect for the Rockies. I guess technically he was. He was a first-rounder, but he wasn't really talked about in prospect circles. And then Jacob Stallings is just abysmal with a bat. So you have, and Chris Bryant is maybe going to play like a third to half of the season. You hope.
Yeah.
So you only have 3 guys that you're expecting to be your entire offense. The bench does not make it any better. Hunter Goodman, Kyle Farmer, I think is maybe the best player on their bench. Sam Hilliard, who has been around the league in the last couple years. And Greg Jones. So
I just think that the Rockies need to do something different. We've been saying this for years. Their approach to building a team, building a roster is so conventional. It's so boring that, I mean, it's hard to expect better results when you're getting the same thing year after year, and it's almost getting worse. It's literally not getting any better.
Yeah, like they have Drew Romo, who is probably going to play in the majors here this year. He had 45 days of service time last year. He's apparently he's their organization's 20th prospect. That doesn't sound right. Is that really
much of a prospect?
Is that really right? Oh, he used to be
a very good prospect.
He used to be a good prospect. Like when he was drafted.
That's the story of Rockies draft picks. They don't really develop, and they do reach the majors, but they don't ever do a whole lot more than that. When's the last time we had? I mean, I guess Tovar's like a success story, but he's also not a draft pick, right? He's a amateur free agent signing.
Yes.
They really don't have any guys that, yes, they took him from first round pick to success, like quality major leaguer. Ryan McMahon, he's the guy.
Yeah. And then probably before that was what, Tulo?
Charlie Blackmon.
True.
Yeah.
Arenado.
Nolan. Yeah.
But
they've had better success in the past. It's just in recent years, all these first round guys, like what happened to Zach Veen? We still haven't seen him yet.
He's not even made his debut yet, has he?
No.
Yeah, so he'll definitely debut this year, but he's the second outfielder on the AAA depth chart, actually, after Yankees Fernandez.
I don't believe I've seen Zach Veen on any top 100 list anymore. He's just
number 16 in the organization.
Yeah, so that
Yankiel Fernandez is the 5th overall in the organization, ahead of Veen. So, Benny Montgomery, I guess, potentially could make a run, but I don't know that he played well last year in the minors there. Let me see what his stats were.
I mean, he's 33rd in the organization. It's not very good.
Oh, his hit tool is abysmal. Yeah. He grades out as a 20 hit tool. Yeah, I mean, he was okay. He, okay, that's why. Last year he only played 11 games. So he was hurt quite a bit last year. So that would maybe be the upside there, is maybe he's healthy and plays well this year. Charlie Condon, who was their the 3rd overall pick here in this last draft out of college, he could end up making it through the minors pretty quickly, and maybe.
But he was horrible in the minors when he first played. Not saying that he's a bust or anything, but it's just like, this is a theme now that their guys are not succeeding in the minors.
Yeah. Their 6th overall prospect is a starting pitcher, though, Carson Palmquist. Maybe he'll.
Well, actually, there's one starter.
Chase Dolander?
Chase Dolander, yeah. He's the one that they're talking about having a chance to break camp with the team. So
really, even though he hasn't played at AAA yet?
Yeah.
Solid. That'd actually be kind of cool, because he does have some really, really good stuff. Yes. So he's like, his fastball is like his pitch. He's got velo, he's got command, with a really, really good slider fastball combo there, and then his off-speed pitches are equally good. So he struck out about 13 Ks per 9 in 118 innings in the minors last year. So pretty solid season. 2.59 ERA. Across high A and double, which are more pitcher-friendly leagues than AAA and the PCL, but those are not bad numbers either way. All right. Anything else about the Rockies, nice or mean?
I'm just going to give you numbers. Fangraphs has them at 0.0% chance to win the division and 0.1% chance to make the playoffs.
So we were nicer than Fangraphs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we tried our hardest to give them some credit, but the numbers say that the chances are quite low.
Yeah, that was hard. It really hurt me to try and say something nice about that club, because I mean, we both know that, or this, but the only time I've ever used the F word on this podcast was because I was ranting about their owner.
Yeah. Thank you for sandwiching this team within the 5 teams.
You're welcome. I wasn't going to pull a U and put them at the end like you did the Pirates.
Yeah, well. The Pirates have a lot more hope than the Rockies.
That is true.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to kind of start to slide back up the parabola here, and let's go over to the Bay Area and talk about the San Francisco Giants. So this is the Giants team that is no longer the 2021 old man club. This is a significantly younger team than it has been in years. I think there's only 3 players in the starting 9 that are, 4. Yeah, 4 of the starting 9 are going to be 30 or older at the beginning of the season. Which for the Giants is insane. I think I'm used to them being like 40 years old all the time. But yeah, so the Giants brought in, or I guess let's start with the players they already had. Jung-Hoo Lee is coming back
wait, sorry. Can I just jump in here before we talk about the players?
Yes.
For a different take on the Giants situation. So they're making a huge philosophical change because of the leadership. So they had Farhan Zaidi
I completely
in place
forgot about this.
for many years, and it really wasn't that successful. And the Giants have been, under a lot of pressure because they only have made one playoff appearance in that 2021 season in the 6-year tenure of Zaidi. So it was not like a great run. And there were some good things that came out of the era, because what the kind of expertise of Zaidi was to maximize the fringes of the roster. He was able to find guys like Lamont Wade Jr. and what's that other guy? Tyler Fitzgerald. Like, these are guys that are really nice to have on your roster as like bench pieces or platoon bats. And they were a team that extensively used platoons and just tiny little 1% edges. However, there was a huge deficiency in their roster in terms of like having enough starting level talent, and they didn't have consistency like in their lineup with enough regular players. And I think that's all about to change in the Buster Posey area, because Buster Posey is kind of old school and he's going to want to roll out a lineup that's fixed, like day to day. These are your starting players, and he's going to value things like fundamental defense. And you can see that in the first transaction that he's made, re-signing Matt Chapman and bringing in Willy Adames. That's probably the best left side of an infield anywhere in baseball from a defensive standpoint. So it's moves like that I look at and I see a huge organizational shift in the way this team is actually going to be run. And just having Bob Melvin there in his second year, another old school kind of guy that's now more comfortable with the organization, it's going to be nothing like that 2021 team or any of the recent years. It's going to be a totally new era of Giants baseball, I think.
Yeah, and so the thing that always seemed to me to be the problem with the Farhan Zaidi tenure was that the Giants would have some really good young players in the system, and then they would stall out.
Yeah.
They would get to Double-A, maybe Triple-A, and then would just completely flame out and disappear from the face of the earth. There were a few guys late in Zaidi's tenure that actually managed to break through and turn into something. And namely, I'm looking at Pat Bailey, first round pick in 2020. Their starting catcher, incredibly good young player. Love Patrick Bailey. Elliot Ramos, who was a first round pick in 2017 out of high school. It took him a long time to make it to the majors. Which, yeah, he was a high school bat. It's going to take a while. But when he came up, he really, really, really struggled. He had to go up, down a couple times before he finally started to find his footing. And last year, he started to break out in his second season. And so I'm looking at guys like that and thinking, now that we're going back to a more old school Giants, are we going to see Bryce Eldridge and some of these other young players, Grant McCray, and I think there's one other. Are we going to see them with different instructors now be able to crack that glass ceiling that it seemed like all Giants prospects were hitting? If so, this is going to become a very good team very quickly with Adames, with Chapman, with now Elliot Ramos, who broke out last year, Pat Bailey, Jung-Hoo Lee coming back from having his separated shoulder or torn labrum. Is that what it was?
I think a labrum, yeah.
Yeah. So he'll be back to start the season, and this is just looking like a completely different club. Then you look at the rotation, and you actually have a rotation that's mostly full of starting pitchers for the first time in what seems like years. You have Logan Webb, their ace. He's still there. He's still an ace. I don't think there's really anything else to say about him other than just he's very good at baseball. They bring in Justin Verlander, which is either going to pay off big time or really bite him in the ass, but it's a single year contract. So, like, it's not going to hurt that much. Robbie Ray's back from injury. Kyle Harrison is going to get another go for a full season in the majors. And he started to show us what he can do, and he's got some talent. Then you got Jordan Hicks down there, who honestly looked pretty good as a starting pitcher last year. I was impressed with how well that went, given the fact that he was a reliever his entire minor league and major league career up until last year. So at 28 years old, making that conversion and being able to sustain it kind of impressed me. So now they actually have a rotation. Do they have depth after that? That's maybe the question that I have.
Yeah, no, I think what the rotation actually gives you is a bit of a mystery, but you can see the makings of a really good rotation. I agree on Hicks that he was good last year, but he was good kind of near the front of the season, and he wore down. They had to move him to relief. I think maybe another year with another offseason of training to be a starter, maybe that becomes easier and he can sustain throughout the season. But I look at like 33-year-old Robbie Ray and 42-year-old Justin Verlander, and we've seen very high highs for both those guys, obviously. I think they're going to have some level of bounce back. I really do think both of them are going to be solid. They're not going to be their peak selves, but I think they're going to be kind of what the Giants need. They need like innings. They need to not rely on their bullpen for huge amounts of the season, which is something that's been a real detriment, I think, to some of the ways that this Giants team has been built, where they just, I'd totally forgotten. Like there were stretches of previous seasons where it seemed like they had Logan Webb and nobody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like I'm looking down at their minor league rosters here at starting pitching, and they actually do have some depth. Like they don't have any incredibly high upside pitchers that are close, but Hayden Birdsong proved to be a fairly reliable pitcher at the back end of the rotation last year. Landon Rupp, kind of the same thing. Mason Black got a little bit of time at the majors, and
Keaton Wynn.
He's Keaton. I'm not even seeing him on the.
Oh, he's on the IL technically.
Oh, is he? Elbow surgery for ulnar nerve transposition in July. So will he even be back?
I'm not sure.
But the point being, like, they have guys that they can put in the back end of the rotation to help solidify if something goes wrong or one of these guys gets hurt, that you don't completely hate. Like, all these guys are fairly good. And they've got three others that haven't had any time at the majors, and Trevor McDonald, Carson Seymour, and Carson Ragsdale, who are all also on the 40-man. So they have a lot of guys on the 40-man that they could play with. So I'm curious to see how their rotation ends up looking at the end of the season. So I think we've pretty well said
we didn't do the same thing for this one.
We didn't, but I think for me, maybe the way to phrase it in the same way we've been doing it for the rest of the episode, I think the Giants are going to win this division because of the change in philosophy here. I think their change in philosophy is putting them in a much more competitive spot. They have a great defense. They have bona fide hitters. Yes, they still have some of their fringe players like Wilmer Flores, like Lamont Wade, who are really good role players. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're no longer expected to be the stars of the club. So they can just do what they're going to do. And they actually have a rotation. So they're not going to be trying to bullpen through 4 games every 5 days. So
and I think I agree totally on the youth movement here, because like you said, the Giants prospects have not had full-time opportunities to take their job and run with it. They get platoon, they get sent up back up and down from AAA, and now we're gonna see Elliot Ramos. Like, let's see if he can hit righties. He didn't really do that very well last year, but he's gonna get the shot, no question about it. I think I see a guy like Gerard Encarnacion, a guy that has insane power, but he struck out like a whole bunch. But is he the guy that can unseat a Wilmer Flores and become the DH? I think yes. I see no reason to think not.
Agreed. And guys like Marco Luciano, who it seemed like they were the next stud of the club and then just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Grant McCray, Wade Meckler, these are guys who are legitimate good prospects that could potentially come up. And if they start hitting, it's their job.
Yeah, you know what's funny though? If the Giants do have success, Buster Posey is going to get an undue amount of credit for the work that he really didn't do, you know?
Yeah.
But that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
I think that Bryce Eldridge, I did want to make note of him because, like, that guy is impressive. For being a 20-year-old kid, made it all the way to AAA last year, and he would be the perfect bat to add to this lineup. And I really think it might happen at some point this season.
Well, and who's their first baseman? Lamont
Wade. Yeah. So, no, he's the perfect guy because he's a left-handed bat. That's something they drastically need another one of, and they need power. And Bryce Eldridge has got it in spades.
He showed that yesterday.
Yeah, I saw the home run.
450-foot bomb in his first spring training action. So, yeah. So I do like this Giants. I think this is maybe the first Giants club I've liked in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be one team to watch that could be surprising.
Agreed. I probably wouldn't bet on them winning the division, but definitely I could see a wild card in their future here. Yeah. Now, what reason do we have to not believe in them?
Just they feel like they're a hitter short on offense. I mean, maybe Eldridge can be that guy later in the season, but it's not going to be right away. The holes there's plenty of holes in the bottom half of the lineup, like Yastrzemski and Wilmer Flores. Patrick Bailey has not really established himself on the offensive side as like a surefire above average hitter. He's a great defender, no question, but jury's still out whether he's a very good hitter.
So my reason against is actually maybe best described through a political situation. It's kind of like the change of a presidency from one party to the other, where things are going to change drastically really quickly. And there's going to be some growing pains for people. It kind of feels like that might be the reason against. Like, with this change in philosophy, you still have to start with the lineup that you were given. And yes, they've made some substantial changes to that, but this is still a roster, a 40-man roster that is mostly people that Posey had nothing to do with.
Yeah, it's the same guys, because really outside of Adames, they didn't bring in any other offensive players.
Yeah. So,
and other than Justin Verlander, they didn't bring in any other pitchers. It's the same group.
Yeah, so it's very much one of those that the changing of the guard is probably going to be the biggest reason against immense success. By the end of the year, they might be clicking and rolling, but I think it'll be spurts. So, all right, we have one team left. This is another team that is going through a little bit of a change of leadership. And it doesn't seem like we're going to have an answer on who's actually stewarding the ship for a while. And that's the San Diego Padres. Peter Seidler unfortunately passed away last season. His brothers are now running the team. His wife and and their daughter have sued the brothers for control of the team. It's a mess. This is a Padres team that for the last, 10 years is like legitimately been trying to put together a club that can win. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. This is a club that has a lot of money committed to Machado, Bogarts, Tatis, Musgrove, and Darvish. And it's unclear what the ownership group is going to do about that, because it seems like they might want to cut costs because they don't have a TV deal. They are broadcasting their games on the MLB TV app, I think exclusively. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe their broadcasts are being produced by MLB.
Yeah. So this is a weird situation, but it's a situation where the team started off in a really good spot. It's kind of the opposite of what the Giants are going through.
Yeah, and we'll kind of get into the moves that they made this offseason, but I think it's very clear that they are hamstrung for this season, where they're not expanding payroll for sure. Maybe they're going to cut it more. There have been a lot of guys rumored in trades, but now it seems like they're just more or less holding steady with the payroll that they have. And the additions they've made have been really low budget moves, which is, I don't know. It's part of the Preller playbook, I guess.
Yeah. So reasons this club is going to win. What do you got?
Yeah. So the reasons are they've got a great base of players. They've got the star potential. And then I have maybe an unreasonable level of confidence in AJ Preller to find stopgap guys that end up overperforming. Like the example I'm thinking of is Jurickson Profar. They brought him in March, I think, last year for a 1-year, $1 million deal. And he had like the best year of his career. It was insane. Preller saw something. I think that might have been his guy from Texas from years and years ago. Obviously, he was once a big prospect, but he never realized it until 2024 when he had the best year of his career, and then he goes on to sign a 3 deal with Atlanta. So that was like a best case outcome for Jurickson Profar. And now they're trying to roll it back, and they're doing it a little bit differently. So this year's version of Jurickson Profar is Jason Joe, which is a combination of Jason Hayward and Connor Joe. And he brings those two guys in for a combined salary of do you have that?
Probably like $1.5 million.
1 year, $1 million for Jason Hayward, and
Connor Joe is still
still in arbitration. 1 year, $1 million. So 2 years, $2 million for a left fielder named Jason Joe. And that guy, I mean, he's not going to be some all-star caliber guy, but they're most likely going to get reasonable production from those two, like in a platoon situation. And they did the same thing in the back end of their rotation. This is like a deep sleeper, Kyle Hart. They brought him into be their number 5 starter. He has like 1 year of major league experience. In 2020, his ERA is like 20 with the Red Sox. And you're thinking like, who is this guy? He's just some rando. This guy won the KBO equivalent of the Cy Young Award last year. So he's sort of in the Michaelis, Eric Fetty grouping of pitchers, like a Merrill Kelly, that went to Asia, dominated that league, and then they came back, and then they had more success as a major league pitcher. So Kyle Hart could be that guy this year for the Padres. Nobody knows who he is, but they might know about him later this year. I feel like that's what the Padres can do. And when they already have a Tatis and a Machado, a Jackson Merrill, who's a young superstar, Xander Bogaerts, like the top end talent is not the issue here. It's just making sure they have the supporting cast. And I believe that Preller has done a good enough job, even though he had almost no money to work with this offseason.
Yeah. So I am right there with you. I love the top end talent of this club. I mean, this is the reason why we've liked the Padres the last couple of years, is because of Machado and Tatis, because of Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, and now Dylan Cease,
and
Michael King. And there's just a lot of guys here to love. Say what you will about Machado if you think he's lazy or whatever, but
he's a great player.
He's a great
whatever
player.
You say.
Yeah. Then you get Jackson Merrill, who just took the world by storm last year. Oh my goodness, was he good?
Yeah.
And it's there, like the talent's there. The down the lineup guys, Elias Diaz is their starting catcher. Not exactly inspiring confidence. He's solid. He's not gonna hit for anything. And there's better defensive catchers out there, but the Padres do have this little thing called an incredibly good farm system, in which 2 of their top 4 prospects are catchers who are both at spring training, AAA. One of them being 18-year-old Ethan Salas, the number 1 prospect in the organization, expected to make his debut in 26, according to Fangraphs last year. However, he's at spring training right now. And so who knows? Maybe this 18-year-old kid is going to end up taking the everyday catching role for the San Diego Padres.
No, it's going to be Maldonado.
It might be Maldonado, but then Brandon Valenzuela is also there. He's their number 4 prospect. He's a first baseman and catcher at the AAA level. A little bit older, not nearly as high upside, but a very respectable player in his own right. And so there are options here that are not 34-year-old Elias Diaz or 38-year-old Martin Maldonado, that you don't know what you're going to get offensively or defensive, really, with guys that young. But they have high-level, high-ceiling guys to come in and take those positions. And so I think in a perfect world, this club will improve naturally by the end of the season with the promotion of one of the top 10 prospects in the organization that ends up doing something crazy like Jackson Merrill did last year. So, yeah, big if, but I wouldn't be shocked because the talent that Preller has got in this system is insane.
Is it though? I feel like they've traded away a lot of the good talent. So I'm going to jump to the downside part of the question. I mean, other than Jackson Merrill, he obviously was a major success. He was their first round draft pick in 2021. Mm-hmm. That worked out fantastically, like right from the get go. That was cool. But other than him, who has graduated through this system and become a player? They've used all those guys as trade capital, which is fine. That's a very legitimate strategy, and it's what Preller's done to build the team. But it's got to run dry at some point. And I know they've got a few guys like Leo DeVries.
DeVries, Cash Salas. Mayfield, and Ethan Salas are the 3 that I'm looking at.
They've got those, top end guys for sure. But I think the depth is seriously compromised now because they had to give up huge prospect capital to get Juan Soto and
and
Dylan Cease
and that's hurting
all these guys
big time.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up a ton to get Luis Arias. Like at some point, this is going to come back to bite them, and I think I don't know if they have the major league ready guys. They're gonna have to deal again, I think, to get help if they need it in season, and that very may well be the way they go, because that's the way Preller runs the team, where if he needs something, he goes out and trades for it. That's his style.
So my concern is that the ownership situation is going to be a shadow hanging over the clubhouse. If the brothers are in charge and they want to cut payroll and they want to try and move off or like move Bogarts or Machado and try and clear up money, that's going to probably hamper spirits there quite a bit. And bad vibes can really, really mess with a club. So like it's not really the most tangible thing, but I think this could be a huge issue for this club. Like there's already been talks of trading Dylan Cease and getting something back out of him, and like they don't have the same starting pitcher depth that they had 2 years ago. So like the more that there's talk about trades of these guys to clear financial space, and then those moves not actually happening, that no matter how much you try and put that behind you, that still does weigh on you. Like, I know I have things from work that I can't affect and don't really affect me that much, but they sit there in the back of my head, and sometimes you think about it and it just really puts a damper on your day. Like, it happens. And I could see that being a huge, huge anchor on the foot of this club.
Yeah, because in the past few years, it's very simple. The Padres are all in. They're keeping their best guys. They're going to continue to trade from the prospect depths, but maybe now that's changing, and they'll be. I guess I don't really see it changing that much. They may trade like a Robert Suarez, but it'll be most likely for guys that are going to help now.
I don't know. I think it depends on what Preller's been told his means are at this point.
I think, but we got a good indication by him signing Connor Joe for $1 million, Jason Hayward for $1 million, Kyle Hart for $2 million. Like, he clearly does not have a lot to work with.
Yeah. We'll probably see Michael King's mutual option for next year be not picked up, and because it's $15 million and he's making $4 this year.
Michael King's not picking that up.
Well, yeah. But no, it feels like this might be the last hurrah, maybe. So
we'll see. Yeah.
But the important point here is there is a lot of reasons to like the clubs in this division. Maybe less so with Colorado. Sorry, Colorado fans. I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. But yeah, this is a really good division. It is going to be a juggernaut fight. Maybe it's David versus Goliath, and we all know who Goliath is, but I mean, David won that battle, so why would we be shocked if, say, the Giants or the Diamondbacks end up winning this division? So now I'm going to ask you to complete an impossible task. I would like you to predict the final standings of the National League West.
Okay, so even after that whole hour, can't pick against the Dodgers. I haven't convinced myself. So the Dodgers are going to win this division.
I agree with you there for the exact same reasons.
And I think that the Padres are still really good. I'm picking them to finish second. And then I'm going Arizona and San Fran and Colorado.
So I'm going to do something crazy here. And the Dodgers are obviously my number one, but my number two, I think is going to be a tie. Like, straight up tie between the Giants and the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
So, meaning both of them get into the playoffs as the second and third wild cards. And then it's their head-to-heads that determine who ends up getting which spot or which seed. So that's my guess. And then the Padres, unfortunately, then have to come in fourth, but only 2 to 3 games behind second place.
Okay.
And then Colorado is going to be a 100-loss club again.
Yeah. Feels like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all very, very much for hanging out with us. We have 2 more of these previews to do. We still have the National League East and the American League East. And then we will be all caught up and ready for the 2025 Major League Baseball season. So we thank you very much, and we will see you guys next week. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.